Okay, good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am Krista Burns, your host here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly online event where we have various speakers and talk about anything that may be of interest to Nebraska librarians across the state. We have Commission staff that do presentations and we have guest speakers as we have this morning. We do these sessions every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time live. And they are recorded, so if you cannot attend a live session, you can always listen to our now over 2 years worth of recorded sessions of NCompass Live.
Some of them are still pretty good.
Some of them are still good, yes. Some are still relevant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over control to Mary Jo Ryan here from the Library Commission, who's going to be our introductions here for today's session. So I will pass the mic and everything over to you guys, and you are good to go.
Thank you so much, Krista. As always, Krista's handling all of our technical details here, and it really makes these NCompass Live sessions go smoothly. I'm very pleased today to have a couple of people from the Nebraska State Courts Administrator's Office with us. And this is exciting for us because those of us that have been working on the Library Broadband Builds Nebraska Communities project have been very happy to have the partnership with the State Courts Administrator's Office. And we have today Deborah Brownyard. She's the Director of Dispute Resolution and Rural Court Services. And we have Janet Bancroft, who's the Public Information Officer. It's sort of the same job I have, only over at the state courts, right, Janet?
Yes. Thank you for having us.
We're very pleased to have you here. I'm just going to have them get started. And please, I want to reiterate, as we always do here on NCompass Live, that this is a conversation as much as it can be in this environment. So if you would please feel free to ask questions. Just type into your chat box any questions that you have, any comments that you want to share, and Krista's monitoring that, and she'll let us know when we have a question. Or if you would like to use your microphone to communicate with our guests today or with anybody, go ahead and put your hand up. Is that what you wanted to do?
Or just let me know in the questions. Just say, I have a mic, please unmute me, and I can do that, and then we'll be able to hear you ask your question that way.
That sounds perfect. So again, we want to make this as conversational as possible. It's a fun hour with our friends from the State Courts Administrator's Office. Deborah?
Thanks so much, Mary Jo, and thanks, Krista. Jan and I are really glad to be here and be a part of this new broadband access project. And so we're now just trying to advance the slide. There we go. Fabulous. Well, Janet and I, part of the State Court Administrator's Office, had been working with public libraries a year ago, and some of you might have been involved where the State Court Administrator, through the Supreme Court Commission on Pro Se Litigants.
That's a mouthful.
It is. It's really, pro se litigants is all about helping people who don't have lawyers.
Yes.
And they need access to legal information. And so about a year ago, I think it was in June is when we had the event, we had an invitation to library representatives from the law school libraries, the state library, public libraries, the Library Commission, to kind of introduce the concept of partnering, where the courts are partnering with the public libraries across the state, because we know that patrons come into the public libraries and ask legal questions. And so a few months later when we found out, well, I think it was at that time, Mary Jo, you had told us that the Library Commission was applying for this 3-year grant, and so the State Court Administrator's Office was a partner in the grant. And so here we are today. This is our first webinar as a partner with this project. And so what you see on the screen is noting that in this Library Broadband Builds Nebraska Communities, that there's statewide project partners, not only the Library Commission, of course, and each public library, whether they're part of the grant directly or not, each public library gets benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good thing to point out, Deborah. I'm glad you brought that up, because we have 147 library buildings that will be getting broadband upgrades and or computer upgrades. But we will be providing lots and lots of training and educational opportunities for the communities. And that will be for every community.
Right. So just noting that the local public libraries, your patrons, State Court Administrator's Office, that's Janet and I right today are representing that office, although there's a lot more of us here in Lincoln. who work with the statewide court system, so the district courts in your area, the county courts in your area. That's part of the network that we're involved in. We also know the Department of Labor is going to be working with this project, medical, so they'll probably be doing webinars.
Yes, and face-to-face workshops too.
And face-to-face. So just that's kind of an overview. And so today, for all of you that are on this webinar and that you look at later on online, that the State Court Administrator's Office and the Nebraska Supreme Court Committee on Pro Se Litigation, our goal, big picture, is to provide access to justice to all residents of Nebraska. So no matter where they live and what socioeconomic, what cultural background, we know that accessing justice is part of civility, part of democracy, and so how to open doors to justice, not just in the formal court system. Mm-hmm. And so partnering with the library Broadband builds Nebraska communities through e-government is one way to achieve the goal. So that's why we're here today. And so I just want to say part of what Janet and I have talked about, how our office, the State Court Administrator Office, can partner with this project. And here's a list of how we see that we'll be partnering for the next 3 years. First, webinars. So this one today is kind of the introductory webinar, kind of the big picture. We see we could do 2 to 4 more if we need to on any topics that might be helpful, that the public libraries might have. We have a couple of topics in mind. Mm-hmm. One is Janet is going to be launching a new self-help website. She'll talk more about that in a little bit. So what we want to do a seminar on just how to navigate that. Mm-hmm. We also know we want to do a webinar on what's called unauthorized practice of law, because we know library directors and staff get questions sometimes about how far can they go. I mentioned revamping our self-help website. That's another thing that we're doing as part of this project we wanted to do anyway.
And it's gotten started already.
It's already gotten started.
It's in process right now.
Great.
We're also working with the Nebraska Legal Aid Society, Legal Aid, to automate some self-help legal forms.
And these are forms for, like, what would somebody fill out self-help legal forms
Divorce is a very well-known one. There might be other kind of automations like protection orders, maybe some garnishment kind of things. We're not sure which ones will be automated, but basically that means a person can go online and there'll be a Q&A and you'll fill out the form. So we'll,
wow, that'd be good.
We'll probably do a special webinar on that once they're available, which will be about a year from now. We're also going to do on-site presentations of court legal e-government. Janet and I and maybe some other people will do some road trips, which I'm looking forward to. I worked in Northeast Nebraska for 14 years and missed that area. Mary Jo just said she was in Norfolk yesterday and took the wrong way out of town. I could have helped navigate that.
Dang, so, you've only been with me.
I know. So Janet and I are looking forward to partnering with you all and coming out to different places in the state to do e-government on-site events.
And those events will be something where we could do some training for the staff in the libraries,
right,
and maybe invite the court personnel to come to,
right,
and maybe even have something maybe in the evening for customers, for the general public.
Yeah, kind of like law night. You know,
yeah, there
and
you
do
go.
a little seminar. You know, kind of do half of it, kind of, you know, with just the staff, and maybe the other part with the public. So,
and one of the pieces of that coming out to visit is not just so you can have experts show you how to run our website. Mm-hmm. It's so you meet your community. What we want to do is match up the librarians with their local clerk magistrate, with their local clerk of the district court, have their judges come in for those who don't already know each other, and I'm sure there are a lot of community connections already established. But we want to build on those, and we want to introduce people so that you have a full resource of individuals to help you, so you don't have just one place to go where you transfer someone on the phone to get help,
Yeah.
but so that you know where to send them and how the pieces fit together.
This is so important. There's a whole discipline in library work of information and referral, and a lot of that referral is to a website now. But there's still all these people that we need to know about in our communities and be able to make those community referrals work, just like Janet said, to make it connect right with the person, the right person.
And that makes me think of that fun worksheets that we all did as little children, dot to dot.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots. Being a part of this has really inspired other ways to connect the dots. And one way is I asked the director of the Nebraska Legal Aid, who are those lawyers out in the state that partner with you? Because legal aid does partner with lawyers in small towns, big towns. They don't have offices, but they have lawyers. And so part of the hope is that we can connect those dots too and have those volunteer lawyers come to these seminars so you can build relationships there.
It's really an opportunity. We'd like to surround librarians with people in their community who are experts in the field rather than relying on the librarian to send them to the internet, because we know that's not satisfying to most people. There are a lot of things you cannot do. There are a lot of things you can do, and making people connections, I think, helps a lot.
I couldn't agree more. That's great.
And that kind of builds on this next one, partnering with local court staff, judges, and lawyers, which is, again, part of our goal. And collaborating with other access to justice partners. One of the areas that I've worked in is mediation, conflict resolution, helping people solve their own problems with a neutral mediator rather than having to go to court. If they have a landlord-tenant, a lot of times some of the best mediations I did was between a landlord and tenant. It was through small claims court. But to help librarians know that that's a resource as well.
Oh, that's great. And there's mediation resources all across the state.
All across the state.
That's great.
Right.
Well, this is going to be fun.
Okay, now I'm having advance. Oh. We're just going to have to rely on. Go for it.
We're now.
Okay.
There it went. Good.
Janet is going to chat a little bit.
I'd like to talk a little bit about what is already on the website and available to everyone. And what I'd also like to back up and say, even if you're not expanding your broadband area, we'd be more than happy to come visit. Let us cut our teeth on doing some court nights in the libraries on the organizations that are having their computers installed or their broadband boosted. But a year or two ago, I was invited out to Seward to present to a community organization. Now I can't remember which one it was, if it was Kiwanis or someone, and our clerk magistrate was a member of that group, and she said, I know you have things online. Can you come talk about them? So we just walked through the website with that group. The court staff came, and it put everybody on a more general footing. We did not have the librarian. We should have.
Yes.
That's before I knew about all of this.
We're all learning.
That's something that we can do. None of this information is privately available to the libraries that we're headed to. It's just that is our starting point to explain what is on our website. And like all other government organizations, we're going heavily to the website. So you can pay your tickets online. You can find a lot of local resources online. One of our biggest items where people go to get help is a self-help center. Sadly, those are only located in Omaha, Lincoln, and then a Tri-City area around Grand Island. So those have very specific service areas. People can drive there. On the other hand, I know when they're in your office and in your library, they would like as much help from you as they can get. So this is our effort to probably boost a bit of a self-help center there. Some of the other items are more specific to court, like case calendar search. You can look up when your case is up. And
somebody else's.
Somebody else's, not yours, someone else's. And we'll give you I'd love to show you all the court contact information. I think what's happened with some of this research that we've run into with Mary Jo is I personally had no idea people were coming to librarians and asking so many very specific law-related questions that I wouldn't have dreamed of asking a librarian. and it shows what a great resource librarians are within that community. And I know Marie Weekman is on the line with us. She is our state law librarian. And a couple of years ago, we had the brilliant idea to involve Marie in terms of getting questions answered. Many times when our resources are not specific enough on the website, we will send a call to Marie, and she has the same or similar access as Creighton and UNL Law Library have to court forms databases. The forms are out there, they're not customized. And can I have you do the next slide? What you'll find on our website, and this is our website right now, the courts, is in the top navy blue section are all the things that we believe are of interest to the public. So generally that's what the little navigation section that librarians would be using. And the Self-Help Center is the place where the librarians will find our forms. It's a unique and very small section of forms that are needed. And of course, every time you get someone, they will have a variation on the theme that we've provided, which is difficult, but happens all the time. We have a very small number of forms. Those are name change, divorce, enforcement of child support,
visitation,
some domestic violence,
yes.
some small claims. They're very specific. When I send people to Marie in the law library is when it's a variation on that or something totally off of our forms.
And I just want to jump in here. I know that there's also, I think, someone from UNL College of Law.
Yep, Marcia.
Marcia's on. And I believe someone from Creighton is.
But she registered.
And at the seminar that we had last June, both UNL College of Law and Creighton Law School were part of this team as well, along with Marie from the State Law Library. So there are definitely fabulous resources to partner with, and I know that those law libraries have partnered with public libraries before.
Yes, in fact, I think we've had great relationship with those law libraries in that if a librarian can just say, well, if you're looking for a form, you might find it here on this self-help center on the left-hand side of that, and then if they don't find it, you might want to give a call to Creighton or to University or to Marie and see if it's a little more complicated. Maybe they can guide you in the right direction.
Well, I just want to put a heads up, and actually it's the next slide, is that NCompass Live did a September webinar on pro se and librarians that Beth Goebel, Laura Johnson, and Julie Bino did a fabulous job on kind of drilling down on this same topic, on what specific resources are out there. And so we're not going to spend a lot more time on those specific resources today, but we wanted just to alert people who didn't know already that you can go on Nebraska Library Commission's website and click on that webinar, and it's fantastic. I was thrilled when I saw it.
And it's one that's still up there because it's still got great information. And people who are looking to go to that webinar, you go to our training calendar, training portal, and you just click on online sessions, and you'll get a whole list of all the online sessions that have been archived, and you can find it and take a look at it.
What's also a nice thing that I've discovered too is that if you just Google NCompass Live, the name of our show, we come up as the first result in
Very
Google.
good.
Whoa, how good is that? We've got
Somebody else is calling
we've got some
something
people
NCompass
doing some
Live.
great meta tagging.
So yes, you'll come up with it just if you go to Google as well.
And so this webinar, the one in September last year, again had absolutely great up-to-date information. And Janet and I hope to continue to partner with the same and similar groups of people when we get the new self-help website launched. You know, as things become more developed, because we're on a growth pattern for providing more legal resources to the patrons out there. So that's part of why we're doing these webinars.
I think it's going to be a great 3 years of all of us learning together and working together to make this, bring this forward. So I'm excited about it.
Any questions so far before we kind of transition some of the other, I want to go over some of the goals that we have in mind.
Just a reminder, you can chat your questions just by typing them in that chat box on the right side of your screen. Or if you actually like to use your microphone to visit with us, all you have to do is type a little chat message to Krista that says, unmute my microphone, and she'll do it.
Yep, I'll put you on the air. Nothing right now.
All right. What I want to talk a little bit about is kind of moving more global, is principles of accessing the justice system. I'm a lawyer. I went to UNL College of Law, graduated in 1980, practiced here in Lincoln, moved to Walt Hill, Nebraska, and did work for legal aid, did Indian law, then became the managing attorney, and then moved into mediation full time. And providing access to justice is really near and dear to my heart, and I know Janet is one of the biggest advocates for the little guy, when you're making sure people can access justice.
It is your constitutional right to defend yourself in court. You are not required to have a lawyer. It's very useful.
And we don't, in certain cases.
Yes, and we do not want librarians to become lawyers, but we want you to do what you do best, which is research and refer. And what we want to do is, Deborah said, connect some dots for you within your own community.
So the 3 principles that we like to talk about in terms of accessing justice is equality, that everyone should have equal access to justice, not people who just can afford lawyers or who are in a big city. So equality of access is an important core principle. Impartiality, that everyone is treated equally and impartially. We are a system of laws, not of people. That's what we were learned in law school. Well, we know that people do make things work, but the law is out there to be neutral so that people can impartially access and get their voice heard and choices made. Judges are to be impartial, mediators impartial, librarians impartial. And I hadn't thought about it until just this very minute. I'm sure the librarians may have opposite sides of the court case, let's say, come into the library. You might have a husband come in one day, wife come in the next day, they're both needing a divorce. So that sense of impartiality is something that just from the library directors I've ever worked with, I've always seen that. Openness. United States has an open system to justice. Public records are open for the most part. Open legal process. You go to court, anyone can come and watch and observe. So it's an open, transparent process for justice. I'm going to whip through these next slides pretty quickly. State court administrators' goals in partnering with libraries. First goal is that we want to continue to support that library staff are fully trained to assist self-represented litigants, abbreviated SRLs. Those are, again, people, we also call them pro se. So you'll hear the word self-represented litigant, you'll hear the word self-represented, and you'll hear the word pro se. We want to support all library staff to be fully trained on how to assist. And I know there's been training in the past. We're just kind of going up the next level with this 3-year project. So to keep up to date about legal resources in Nebraska, and that you're able to help people with interactive automated forms or where they can get help. We also want you to be able to advise patrons on where to find other forms on our website, and to have training either in person or online about our new website. And so that's where that future webinar will be scheduled. And Janet, we think about when will the new website be launched?
End of the month, I'm hopeful.
Wow. Okay. Fabulous.
It is in the works.
So maybe sometime, what do you think? Sometime March, April, we should do another webinar? Maybe we would ask you, those of you out there, when would be a good time for us to start really getting down deep into this self-help website? Self-help, law help website.
Okay.
Any responses you'll let us know?
Does want to be unmuted. Hang on a sec here.
Great.
Okay, we should be able to hear you. Go ahead and talk.
Okay, hi, Deborah and Jen. This is Beth Goebel calling, and This is Beth Goebel at the Library Commission. I have a specific question for the two of you relating to a phone call that I got a couple of weeks ago. An individual who was having some problems with the personal representative to do with an estate not doing her job. Long conversation. She said she'd tried legal aid and so on. She really was convinced that there was some state agency whose job it was to make this other person do what they were supposed to do. My question to you is, did I go too far in your first bullet on the slide here about advising patrons on where to find other self-help forms on Nebraska's court website? There is a form there that you can print off and fill out to ask for information from the personal representative. Did I go too far in pointing her to where that form is?
Well, you're never going too far in pointing people toward a resource, for one thing. I mean, that is, sometimes it's not as accurate as it could be, and I guess this is like all of the calls that you get and we get that I send to Marie.
I felt a little uncomfortable because I did actually tell her the specific name of the form and the form number, and not being an attorney, which I told her many times, this may be a form that you could use to try to get some information from this person.
Beth, this is Deborah. This is how I would approach it. If the person was online with me at the same time, was she? Do you know?
Person does not have a computer, so the next thing I told her was go to the library, and she was, oh, I love the library. I go there all the time. So that was going to be her next stop.
And, without getting too cumbersome, if the person was online and, let's hypothetically think that now the person's sitting in the library and it's the library director that is advising the person. I would sit down with the person and kind of scroll down the forms and say, well, let's look at this list. Which ones here look like they might work for you? And just kind of ask that, be a team approach. You kind of know because you've been trained about where these forms might be, and you know that on the court website there's a section on personal representatives. And then you could just have them, well, which ones look like they might help you? And that's kind of where I would go.
And I do know that from working with Marie in the law library that she has a standard phrase that she says to most people who call, and that is, I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot advise you, but would this form work for you? And she will email people forms and form links and say, would this work for you? Then it's their decision on whether they would want to use them, and who it is that they're going to blame if something doesn't work.
And I think framing it in the part like Janet just said, would this work for you, is an excellent approach. So, it's fine lines, but lawyers are all about splitting hairs. So, we will, and Beth, I would suggest we're going to have an Unauthorized Practice of Law webinar, and not sure who might be with us, but there might be someone from the Bar Association who works in this field. And just know you're going to get a range of responses. Mm-hmm. Yet always, whenever in doubt, make sure you phrase it so that the decision is the patron's. Mm-hmm. Rather than saying, this will work for you, say, will this work for you? Look down this list, which ones might work for you?
Mm-hmm. And I know, Beth, just from your question, my first thought was, did this person want to file a complaint with the Council for Discipline regarding the attorney's work, or if she had an attorney? It's so hard to tell without asking questions. Our office also runs the organization that disciplines attorneys or investigates attorneys. We investigate judges, or we investigate attorneys for their lack of, if they are not performing at a level that they are supposed to be performing, if they violate their code of conduct. And sometimes you can't tell if a person is complaining about an actor within the court process, or if they're complaining about the court process, or if they've even gotten there. So there are so many stages of these of these things.
I know the answer to that one, and it had never gotten as far as the courts. That was the frustration, that the wife of the deceased was selling property and there hadn't been a will. But I got a long story on it. But
I bet.
this person really did not want to seek legal advice. They felt that legal aid would turn her down because she wasn't on. And she may have had some misconceptions about that. I think she had tried to call and been put on hold and so on and so forth. So it's a huge amount of frustration built up, and it was hard for me to convince her that I could not, that there wasn't somebody who was just going to step in at this point and make it right for her. So
here's another
it was
thought.
a difficult interaction.
Here's another thought, Beth. Sometimes when people feel very frustrated because they can't get heard and they have an important issue to address, you can also refer them to a mediation center and say that perhaps you can ask the mediation center to schedule a meeting between you and the wife. And of course they may say, no, I don't want to have a face-to-face. But sometimes that really is what's needed. There may be things going on in the scenario that the caller is not aware of. And so being able to talk to the caller and say, yes, I understand you have a deep concern about this, and there may be legal responses. Before you even go there, if you don't want to do legal, maybe you need an opportunity you'd be benefited to sit down with a third party, a mediator, to raise the issues. So that could be another resource.
And I would have to say, on behalf of Legal Aid, we do get a ton of complaints by the time the calls come to our office that, Legal Aid never answered. And Deborah and I have visited Legal Aid offices. We've been there, and I can tell you those people are so busy all the time. And their funding is being cut, just like everyone else's. They're cutting attorneys. So to empathize and say, yes, I understand that's frustrating. You understand they're very busy.
I do know that Legal Aid has an elder helpline for any elder issues, which is over age 65, and there's not a financial requirement, because to access legal aid resources you need to be indigent or low income. However, if you're 65 or older and it's a legal question related to you being elder, and I don't know whether that applies to this call, they have what's called an elder access line. It's an 800 number. I don't have it with me today, but I believe it's probably on that September webinar. And if not, you can just Google Elder Access Line Nebraska Legal Aid, and you can get that information there.
We do have a question that came out of what you were talking to Beth about. Actually, first, is that, are you good, Beth? Is that all?
Uh-oh, Beth's moved.
Thanks. That's
Okay.
great.
Just want to know if I would mute her again.
Yeah.
We had a question from Pam Baumfalk at Hastings Public Library. Wants to know how to access the mediation centers.
Okay,
Like,
if we could, if we can back up the slide to the court's website. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, let's see.
I know this thing is.
There we go.
There we go.
Again, supremecourt.ne.gov is this website. Again, in the navy blue left-hand column menu, looks like about the 5th item down, the word mediation. You can just click on mediation, and it'll take you to the mediation home page, and there'll be a menu there where it says for the public, and there's a map. You have to drill down a little bit, but you'll see a map of the state of Nebraska, and you can click on any of the counties. For example, Adams County will connect you up with the mediation center that's headquartered in Kearney, and they serve regions, and they have mediators throughout the region, and they have 800 numbers, they have emails, and so they schedule the sessions in Hastings and Red Cloud and Broken Bow, wherever it needs to be done.
And if you keep going a few buttons down the Self-Help Center, on this older site and on our new site, we will have links to all of those legal aid centers. So if you want you can even Google Legal Aid Nebraska, go on there, and then find the Hastings office. But if you're looking for resources, the Mediation Centers show up on the Self-Help Center page, as do the legal resources, and that's under a new legal resources book.
So we're double and triple menuing all of these resources for you, so that the new self-help website and the current one will have all these other resources. Okay, going forward. The second partnering goal is that that libraries are ready and willing to do what triage and make referrals. Again, what Janet just said, triage, asking the questions to really discern what is it that is the core of the problem. And I don't know how much time you want to or can spend in that, but I know reference librarians, others regularly do that, right?
It depends, of course, on how busy the reference desk is, and but yeah, I mean, that is a regular part of reference work, is asking the questions and listening to the responses to get a determination of what it is that people are really looking for. Yeah.
And we will have ideas to help you streamline that process. So one would be to have bookmarks to the links for the legal. And I think that's still kind of developing on what might be a good, we have the self-help page that we're doing, and I think that will have, like, on it all these clicks that you can go to pay court fees online, to do legal research, to find mediation.
And this will be the name, lawhelp.org? No, it'll be something nebraska.gov.
Yeah, it'll be nebraska.gov.
But it will link through our main website and then be available to you to link to from the library.
Part of this as well is that you as library directors have the capacity to identify the broad areas of the law, and I'm sure a lot of them, some feel more conversant in it, some don't. I recognize that library directors get questions from law to how to plumb, how to garden.
My car works.
Yes, so that's a huge scope. So again, depending on how deep librarians want to go with these webinars and with our on-site, we can adjust to that. And hopefully connecting the dots with some of the lawyers and judges in the area, and if you decide to do law night, that you can have presentations there, because we know you're natural researchers. The third goal is that because where you are and your interest in education, that you are potential trainers. I know the Lyons Public Library and the Walt Hill Public Library, when was so valuable to me in small town Nebraska, is that the librarians did a lot of work on training patrons on how to use the internet, how to use online forums. And so we want to just make sure that you feel comfortable doing that, so when people come. And there may be people with other language needs. We do have some forums that are in Vietnamese, Spanish, and Arabic.
Our top 3 languages.
And just knowing that, I mean, just knowing that we have those forums, that's great.
We also know that perhaps you might want to host Know the Law events, and having these local court staff or judges, attorneys present information, that there might be some chat room opportunities. And I don't know how much technology each library has, but perhaps that might be a resource. I just went to a national conference on technology and self-help with represented litigants, and the use of live chat is growing. So I think we all know we're on the crest of this huge tsunami where more technology will be helpful.
So that's a great idea. So you have a live chat. Who would you have, like, them live chatting with? The people in the law libraries, Marie, I mean,
even the self-help desks, if
even
that's
the self-help
possible.
desks.
I mean, it would be nice to be able to set something up in advance and try it out, where you can have, remember when NET had Ask a Lawyer?
Yes, sort of, yeah.
Well, it's going way back. But I want to say 20 years ago, they had the Ask a Lawyer forum, and they would bring in public defenders or a lot of times it was criminal or civil attorneys, to be a forum to answer questions. And I know some of the news stations in Omaha do something. I'm not sure you ever get the final answer because I believe it's advertising. But in the old days, some of the radio stations had that call-in night. On occasion, Legal Aid will have a sponsored night where they will do free legal self-help.
Right, right.
Sometimes surrounding Law Day, which is May 1st, people will have legal clinics. So there are opportunities out there right now. They are by region because we haven't quite gotten to the advanced level of the technology to have a Skype chat. We'll just take we'll just take everyone with us and be able to set that up.
And I do know that Legal Aid does operate a live chat for patrons who are income eligible. So if you go to the Legal Aid website, and you go to their homepage, they have a place where you can do some Q&A. I don't know that it's live all the time. They have limited hours right now, but it's kind of tiptoeing out into that arena. So the fourth goal is that you libraries are included in planning for access to justice. Again, Janet and I were both kind of like, it's this dawn going off in our head, this light bulb going off that, oh my goodness, the libraries are a huge, fabulous resource for access to justice. So we need to hear from you. What would be helpful for you? What do you think? What are your ideas? And so today is also an invitation to anyone who's online today or later on to get back to Janet and me or to Mary Jo with ideas you have. And right now we're part of this team. So
absolutely.
And Mary Jo and your staff have been really great for kind of teaming up with us, as has kind of again that kickoff we did last June with the law libraries, state library, public libraries. Something that we also dawned on us is that as your local community wrestles with legal issues, for example, water issues, Republican River's been in the news a lot. There may be some citing of something or another. There may be some school issues that have a legal component to it, and what doesn't these days.
Yeah, really. I'm thinking of a few right now.
That this e-government and just libraries thinking of, oh, I remember we had this law day or we had this e-government thing, and I remember meeting the judge or I remember meeting the lawyer. Maybe we could invite them to do a seminar on this local issue. Lastly, the goal that you at the libraries integrate e-government law into your marketing access. And your surveys showed me that you're already doing this, and that we heard back from several libraries, including Seward, York, Lincoln, Kearney, La Vista, others who said, yes, we've heard from people who have questions. They tend to ask for forms. A lot want free legal help. And they have, where's the court? How do I pay my ticket? How do I pay my court fees? What do I do with landlord-tenant? What do I do with wills in the state? What do I do with divorce? So we know you're already listening. Just continue to do things like bookmark those resources on your computers. Possibly have table tents about here's this legal information desk. Maybe you highlight it during the month. And May is the start of Law Day.
May 1st is Law Day.
And then it's a month like Legal Information Month or something, or
we can make it whatever you want it to be. It might take a month.
I would think.
And nationally, Law Day has been going on for centuries. But it seems like
eons.
And mostly we have focused on student projects. We do a writing contest and those kinds of things. But we would love to come out to your community, and it doesn't have to be Law Day, and it doesn't have to be Constitution Day. We can visit and set you up with people in your communities. We know people in the court arena. You know people in the community, in the library arena, and matching those up. Deborah and I would prefer frosting on our cookies if we have a big library night or takeout. But we can set up not only events, but at least the beginning of relationships if those have not already been established. And I know in most towns they already are. But to make it a more formal relationship where if you have to call for assistance or call for a referral, the person on the other end of the phone knows that it's coming.
Well, and I just thought of this too, Janet, while you were talking about Law Day and students, is a lot of what we've talked about so far are problems that law can help with. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is more the civics part, teaching the public about the law, engaging youth in legal activities
and legal rights
and legal rights and what are my rights as a person, resident of the United States. And Law Day, as Janet said, there's essay competitions, and the champions come to Lincoln. There's also what's called mock trial, and many of you might have heard of mock trial for high school students. Constitution Day in September, is it? Or
September 17th.
And Janet's connected with the Nebraska Bar Foundation that does a lot of youth-oriented things, and I know public libraries are always wanting to kind of connect the dots with that.
Well, for example, this year's essay question, I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag because it hasn't been mailed out, but it's on cyberbullying.
You heard it first here.
Yeah, students and cyberbullying. And what are students' rights if they are bullied? What are their responsibilities if they are using the internet? So it does fit in with that theme of community education, which is so near and dear to the libraries.
That's great. That's very interesting.
So cool ideas. Just again, going forward.
Sure. We about 10-15 minutes left. I don't know how far you
Absolutely.
have to go.
Yeah. Well, we'll just flip it through really good. Just a slide summarizing what we've already talked about. There's lots of delivery models out there. The judicial branch is working really hard to be current with technology and try to be ahead of the curve. Again, we do have online bill pay. We have online searching your court case. People can pay money to actually access a court file.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pay to access a calendar, but you do have to pay to get copies of a file or access to that. There's video conferencing, the web that we're doing now, just recognizing that, we're trying to keep our radar screens open and knowing that there's different ways to keep people connected. Want to note that nationally, I think you'd be interested to hear that part of what targeted, perked my interest about a year and a half ago was late in 2009, I heard about this national conference, Public Libraries and Access to Justice. And Nebraska Supreme Court Court Administrator applied to go. We didn't get accepted because there was huge application. Bill and Melinda Gates.
Real competition.
Yes,
for
real
this.
competition. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is involved in BTOP, was involved in helping to pay for this national conference a year ago, and they could only pay for like 15 states to come, and they had like 30 some odd states that applied. But as soon as we heard the idea, it's like, well, why not? And you can see that there is what's called the Self-Represented Litigation Network. It's a project of the National Center for State Courts and the Legal Services Corporation. And just like the American Association of Law Libraries, which is a partner of this network on the national level, we're now trying to model that here on the state level.
And now, was that not the seed of the relationship between you two?
It was. It was. Absolutely.
So you see this list, if you Google Self-Represented Litigation Network, you will see this kind of national partnership going on. And I have found a lot of great resources there. This is just telling you what you already know. Part of why libraries were part of this is because we know you are the first stop. Libraries are the first stop for those seeking information, and people trust you just like mom and apple pie,
Yeah.
which sounds really yummy right now. It
Boy,
makes
I
me think
know.
of summer.
Where
which
is that apple
I
pie?
know. We also know that assisting patrons is nothing new for you. You've done it before. And we also know that so many of your key concepts are reflective of access to justice. You want to provide access to people. You want to provide customer service, and you want to provide accurate information. We know that your doors are guaranteed to be open to all, just like the court's doors. And we also know that people are going to feel much more comfortable going to the public libraries than going into the court. So, wow, what an ideal door for them. And again, that's what Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation representative said when she came here last November, that they wanted to fund the public libraries as a system in the United States because we know public libraries are such a core constituent of democracy. We also know customer service, you're in that business, and that public librarians are competent and cooperative. And what the webinars that we are doing with you and the public meetings to support you is to help librarians feel more comfortable saying, no, I can't help you, to more like, here's how I can help you.
Perfect.
And I'm just going to skip through here. Unauthorized practice of law we get questions about. Nebraska does have a commission on authorized practice of law. It's established by the Supreme Court, and the State Bar Association administers it. There's a staff person there, and they have commissioners. What is the practice of law? Here's a definition. You're applying legal principles and judgments to specific circumstances to resolve a problem or how to proceed under the law. So if you're not applying it to a specific, but just say in general, generally this is legal information. So there's a difference between information and advice.
Mm-hmm. And we will have a webinar that will go in depth into how to avoid even the appearance of unauthorized practice of law.
Right.
Well, and I would have to say I learned one of my biggest lessons from Ann Borer, who is a librarian in law librarian in Omaha, when I kept saying, I don't understand why people are calling and asking you these questions. And it was legal questions. She said, because I am a reference librarian, and that is what I do. Wow. It took a reference librarian to school me in that issue. And when you are providing reference items and matching people up with resources, you're doing a great job in terms of just making people feel empowered and aware that they can do something and less frustrated by the system.
I think a lot of librarians get scared by the legal, I'm providing legal research, but legal advice. But I worked as a reference librarian for 9 years, and it's the same thing as anything you do as librarian. You don't do the students' work for them. You don't do the research for the public library. You show them where to find the information and let them make the decision about what they want to use and how they want to go forward with it. And legal information is the same way. You show them where to go, but you don't do it for them. You wouldn't do that for anyone else. So
very
concept.
helpful.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read this out loud. It's been on the screen for a couple minutes.
All of the presentation, by the way, also the PowerPoint presentation, all the links that we had on here will be included when we put the recording out. So you'll have access to all of this when we have that out there for you. So you don't have to try to scribble all this stuff down now.
And this is just the name of the administrator at the Bar Association for unauthorized practice of law on their website. And they have a FAQ page as well. A few can and cannots: can provide information to court users about how it works, can connect people to information that's not legal advice. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to read every single one of these, but just know we're going to do a future webinar on this can and cannot. This middle one I want to point out, you can record on the form's information if the litigants aren't able of filling out the form themselves.
And this might be something to think about if you have a situation where English is not the first language of the individual. If you have an interpreter, then you and the interpreter can fill the forms, but the person is making the answers
right.
themselves.
You're just the scribe. You're not telling them what to write in there. They're telling you what to write down. One caveat about forms, be careful of source of forms. Going to reputable websites, generally your statewide legal aid or your court sites. There's more and more advertisements online now about you can buy this form, you can go here. And the other caveat, I even heard somebody say, I've used, quote, TurboTax, quote, and I got in trouble. We always say, and on every website, you know, you do need to ask for a lawyer to assist you if you're doing legal work. We always just say that, and I suggest law librarian or just librarians say you should also ask a lawyer.
And just to let you know that the court staff and the judges have the same restrictions you do. Judges more so because they are lawyers, and court staff are not lawyers, and they can talk about process, but they cannot give any type of advice on how to proceed or if to proceed. So we have a little poster with the can and cannots for the court staff, and
we should make one of those for librarians too.
Can and cannots.
That might help. I think, would you?
I think it'd be great.
Let us know if you'd like one of those to hang on the wall in your office for a little reminder.
Just a couple quick more
staff
points
bathroom
before we finish. When I was preparing this, I thought about confidentiality concerns.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the library directors out there have already figured this out, but just to be mindful that as a patron is asking legal questions, telling you about their private life, how to do that so that other people in the library aren't overhearing that.
And librarians are very sensitive to confidentiality
And
in regard
privacy.
to their and privacy in regard to people's access to information. But it never hurts to remind people that when you're talking to someone, you can always say, we want to make sure this is a private conversation. This is going to be confidential. Let's move over here. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Just again, supporting your partnering with us, and we know it does take work, and we know it takes your commitment, and we hope, and we also know, though, that it does have a big payoff. It already has. I mean, look at us today. It's just really great. So kind of the final slides is these are just brainstorming the different kinds of local and area partners in part of Library Broadband Builds Nebraska Communities, helping people, you know, connect with each other and knowing that those resources are out there.
And I just want to take just 1 minute to thank particularly the law libraries who jumped on board with us with great enthusiasm. Early on, I think we had one meeting and they were off and running by the time we got going.
Yes.
We've now had this opportunity to get back together, so at some point we will recircle back through UNL Law Library, Creighton, Douglas County Law Library, and the State Law Library with Maria. She's a great help to Deborah and I. But we will share those resources, hopefully in a way that works for everyone, that everyone can have access to the expertise of those individuals.
Absolutely. So, I don't know if we have a lot of time, but
No, that's fine. We can go as long as we need to. Anybody have any final questions, comments, suggestions? Feel free to type them in, or say you want your mic unmuted, and we can do that. Is this the last slide, or do you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's the information slide.
There we go.
Yeah, contact information.
Contact information.
Oh, we're just getting some thank yous, so thank you very much. If you do have any other future questions, obviously you can contact. There's contact information there, and like I said, the slide presentation will be posted when we put the recording up as well.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Well, thank you both so much for coming, and we'll be back. This is just the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
We do have Laura, the librarian from Fremont, wants to know, when can you come to Fremont?
We'll work with that.
Let us know when it thaws.
And I would imagine I've heard of 1 or 2 legal issues in Fremont lately.
Yeah.
So I think
She just put a little smiley face.
yes.
Fremont will be a priority.
Actually, Fremont was one of my one of the mediation center counties that I covered, and I was regularly in Fremont doing mediations in Dodge County Courthouse, and they have some great partners in the courthouse too. So definitely we'll make that, as well as any other place that we can. Just let us know.
And you have a brand new judge in Fremont, I think, as of Friday afternoon, so get him early.
Judge Hall.
Judge Hall.
All right.
Great. She says, sounds good. Okay, it doesn't look like any questions really came in yet, but
As we said, you can go ahead and send them if you do come up with them later, and when we do have future sessions, you'll hear about it from us here. So thank you very much for attending. Thank you, both of you. I think it's very, very useful and for everyone, and to get us started with our grant project. It's the first one we've done with one of our partners. So next week, I hope you'll join us, where our session is going to be on our new basic skills program, online all year long, that you can do it. Laura Johnson, our Continuing Education Coordinator, will be doing a presentation on what's going on with that. So if you're looking for basic skills information, next week would be the time to be here with us.
Basic skills, 24/7.
Yes.
We've moved into the information age.
Yes, everything online. So we'll see you next time. This has been recorded and will be up and available to you maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how long it takes to process. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.